Trying to go, I am so glad you're here, and I'm so glad that we have John speaking today and our friend Amy from Oklahoma City. We are so excited to have her. Y'all, you missed out. We had such a good time last night. So anyway, we are going to start with, I've got a few announcements. If you have your t-shirt design, would you please give it to either Linda or Kim or anybody on the board? We would just love to have your copy and your ideas. There were three people at board meeting, and we didn't have a quorum and we couldn't vote, and it's because everybody was sick or had a kid that was sick or had to go see a mother that was sick. That's what happened to Susan and Aubrey. So anyway, it was, understandable, but we just didn't have a quorum. So we made a lot of decisions. I'm sure to go in because we had control. I'm just kidding. And so anyway, I want you to be sure and come next month because we're going to have great speakers. Isn't it Christina? Yes. And she writes a true crime research book, and she's worked on it forever. It's very, very exciting to see her work, and we're really looking forward to it. So today we are very fortunate to have John. John, would you pronounce your name for me?
Warenko.
Warenko. Okay. Is that Polish?
Russian.
Russian.
Not a good word to say these days.
Oh no, all the Russian Americans are okay with me. So anyway, he is an artist, an illustrator, and has worked in this field through his entire career. And we're very excited to have him show us some of the things that he's got going. We will eat lunch if you would like to join us at the Toasted Egg, and if we will take a head count, probably 11ish or so, and let y'all stew and decide whether you want to go at lunch with us. And it's a great way to get to know other writers and get questions answered about self-publishing or how to get in touch with an illustrator or anything like that. We just love to share expertise about what you want to know about. Anyway, that's all the anthology entries have all been sent to the readers, and I'm very excited about that. So they are looking at them and deciding what will wind up in our anthology. And we try to do an anthology every year, and this year the theme was Beneath Lubbock Skies. So people chose historical figures. They I don't even know what all of the different things that they chose. So anyway, we're hoping to have that published and out to you by February. We're going to have a big party when we finally get it. I'm proud to introduce, like I said, Mr. John Warenko. And it's not that I can't say it, it's just that I can't remember it.
Well, the way I tell people, it's Warenko.
Okay.
Just they were and co.
Okay. Warenko. You know what? I got it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, John.
Okay. I've been given 10 minutes, so I put together some quick notes here. I also have, make sure you all have the notes in front of you because it makes it go much quicker that way. The other problem is that we had a technical problem. We were supposed to be able to project my portfolio up on the wall, but what we will do is I have my laptop here, and we'll put the lights out, and if you can strain your vision, you might be able to see it from a distance, okay? But that's the reason why I did this, the paperwork, because I'm also an admissions director for many, many years, and I traveled the country. And every time I'd go someplace, I never knew what I was going to have to face. So I became a belt and suspenders man. Just be prepared for anything, okay? So anyway, I first want to thank KJ Waters and DK Kerr for their invitation today to have me speak to you. Unfortunately, KJ has a family issue, as you just heard about the board, and she's not able to be here today. But she was my original contact. That's how I found out about the organization, was through her. I also want to introduce my daughter, Christina Kerr. She's my tech person. She tried like crazy to help us get all hooked up, but we were just missing some cables. I also want to welcome Professor Jorge Morales from Texas Tech University and his lovely wife, Elizabeth. He and I are working on an article together that I'm illustrating, and I'm really privileged to have a relationship with a tech professor as brilliant as Jorge is. And he's going to say, don't say that, but it's true. The guy's brilliant. So is his wife. She's in the writing program at Texas Tech. So I'm very glad to. And I've only been here 4 years, and really only 2 if you don't count COVID and the fact that I had to build a house. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm going to have several quotations that I'm going to give you, and then I've got some books I want to show you, and then I'll do the slides. There's several quotations I think are really important. One is by, believe it or not, Leonardo da Vinci. And he said, "You cannot be an accomplished artist unless you're able to capture the expression on a man's face falling from an 8-story building as he passes you by." The other one is Pablo Picasso said, "Every human being is born an artist. The trick is staying one the rest of your life." Oh. And those are 2 just great quotations, okay? And they're really not about any particular art you make. They're about creativity. It's about what it takes to be creative. Before we go into the portfolio, I want to go over the 4 projects that I've been working on over the last 10 years, which are in my slide portfolio. One is called Occam's Looking Glass. I'm originally a fine artist and an art educator and an arts administrator. I came to illustration as I approach retirement. And primarily, as it says in my blurb, I have a sister who writes children's story, and she asked me to illustrate them for her. And so that kind of got me interested in the idea of going down the illustration route, but continue to do my fine art painting and so on. So the Occam's Looking Glass, I'll explain it a little bit later. I have another one I'm working on is called Thrice Told Tales Connections. It is an illustrated autobiography of me and my family. I come from a very large family, 8 children, and I'm the oldest. So I'm illustrating this, and I'm about 1/3 of the way into my life. Okay. The other one is the one I mentioned about my sister's books. They're called The Elf and the Tree, and I have slides of those. The last one is an art history book. It took me 8 years to do the research for this book, and I'll explain a little more. It's about the female form in art over the last 20,000 years. And I chose the title Classic Pinups Through the Ages because the book is a textbook, and textbooks don't sell very well unless you have a catchy title. Everybody knows what a pinup is. And the fact is that you can have the Venus of Wallendorf 20,000 years ago as a pinup, or you can have Marilyn Monroe in the 20th century as a pinup. They're all the same. So it's an art history book for an art college, and it's heavily illustrated. If you go to the next page, I want to give you some references that you can look up, bibliography. Number 1 is The History of the Illustrated Book by John Harthane. Excellent book. I recommend it highly if you're interested in illustration. Another one is Ways of Seeing by John Berger. It originally was a BBC series on television. It's an excellent book, Ways of Seeing. The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. This is a really important thing for painters, sculptors, printmakers, and traditional photographers. The whole idea of mechanical reproduction and what it does to fine art. A very excellent book. The other one is The View from the Studio Door, How Artists Find Their Way in an Uncertain World. He addresses this actually to students in college majoring in art. What are you going to do after you graduate? And he has some excellent recommendations. So if you know any artists, I'd really recommend this book. The next one is The Human Figure. You can't be an illustrator unless you know how to draw and paint the human figure. And I was privileged enough to have taught with this gentleman, David K. Rubens, at the Herron School of Art of Indiana University. It's a Penguin book. It's a staple in the whole area of the anatomy of the human form for artists. It's a very excellent book. The next one is The History of the Ideal Woman and Where That Has Left Us. It's interesting because I went online to see if you could still see the animation. It was produced by CNN, but you can go online, put that title in, you can see it with still images and the text. But the original animation was terrific. The animation is the book I produced. In other words, if I was going to produce an animation, that would be it from the book. Okay. So just go online and check that out. See the last one. Oh yeah, if you are an artist and you're interested and you're doing the human figure, this is called Skin Tones and Oil. It's an excellent book. It's a step-by-step guide of how to do the human form in oils. And that's a big deal for me because I do it all the time. Okay. Now, the next quotation is from John Harthane. It's about, you can see it on page 3. It's about illustration. He says, illustration may be approached from different viewpoints. One is to study the technique used. This is a valuable exercise, but to concentrate exclusively on techniques and to look at illustrations primarily as examples of graphic art is to ignore the complex relationship between picture and text. And this is what Occam's Looking Glass, all my paintings are about. Picture and text. The relationship between language and art. And the whole historical social hinterland from which books emerge. Book illustration is like a hand mirror in which one can see reflected great historical scenes, social changes, and the movement of ideas through the centuries. He also says book illustration has always been concerned with communication. It has to interpret or to amplify a text, a function which distinguishes it from painting and sculpture. So when I'm illustrating, I'm doing a different kind of art than when I'm painting, although they're interconnected. And for a long time, people sort of looked down at people who were illustrators, like Norman Rockwell, who is now praised as a great artist, okay? And as a matter of fact, I attended a show in Stockbridge, Massachusetts at the Andy Warhol Museum, in which it was Andy Warhol and Rockwell. An interesting combination. Fine art and illustration combined. It was an outstanding exhibition. I hope they do it again. Also, I found out that Andy Warhol's younger brother was a children's book illustrator. Finally, traditional literary illustration, in the best sense of the word, is illustration which does not dominate the text. And I'll give you an example of illustration by a very famous artist that dominates the text. It is the 150th anniversary edition of Alice in Wonderland, and they asked Salvador Dali to do the illustrations. Turns out that it's more about Salvador Dali than it's about Lewis Carroll. That's what Hawthorne says, that it should not dominate the text. It should integrate with the text. It should explicate the text, okay? He didn't do that. Oh. But because of his name, he got away with it. Oh. Now I want to turn to my drawing and painting portfolio. That's on page 4. Turning to my portfolio, I have a quote from Rudolf Arnheim, and I had the privilege of working with Professor Arnheim when I was vice president of the Institute for Humanities Research at Indiana University, and I brought him from Ann Arbor, Michigan, University of Michigan, down for a week-long symposium. And he is an incredible man, unfortunately passed away, but I'd like to quote from him. In his book, Visual Thinking, images then regard the world in two opposite directions. They hover somewhere above the realms of practical things and below the disembodied forces animating those things. They can be said to mediate between the two. Paintings and drawings in my portfolio are derived from an original work that I refer to as Modern Illuminated Manuscript, titled Occam's Looking Glass. My artwork is based on Occam's razor, which states that entities ought not to be multiplied beyond necessity. In addition, I've been influenced by Ludwig Wittgenstein's picture theory of language, to be found in his Tractatus, and his language game theory, found in his philosophical investigations. So that's pretty much my introduction. Now I'm going to try to project these images for you and then take a few questions because my time is limited, okay? So we could turn the lights out. I don't know. I guess is that a light on?
I think it's up here.
Can you see it at all? I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's this one.
How am I doing on time? Okay? A few more minutes?
Couple.
Okay. You can't put that out, huh?
I think
But
it's okay. It's
you can
okay.
see it? Okay. This is my portfolio, Occam's Looking Glass. This is a painting that is 4 foot square. It's made up of individual canvases. You can actually move the painting around and you become part of the creative process by recreating the painting. There are a multiplicity of ways in which that painting can be reconfigured, and you can be part of the artist process. So I'm going to go quickly through that. These are just, again, 4 foot square. These are smaller. These are all watercolor. The others are oils. These are all watercolor ink. And these are smaller drawings. This is the book that I'm working from. It is a collection of short stories, poems, and essays. The short stories that I'm doing are actually from cinematic images taken from a film by Elaine René called Last Year at Marienbad. And it includes the verbal subtitles on the painting are in addition to the image itself. So this is the actual book. It's one of a kind. I call it a palimpsest, which is based on a medieval concept of parchments, because parchments were made from animal skins. Books were highly precious, more precious than gold. If they couldn't get it, they sometimes scraped it off and added another text on top of it in order to save the skin. So it's called a palimpsest, and my images are transparent images, one layer on top of another. This is from the stills from the René film, Last Year at Marienbad. I pulled texts out that are not directly related to the image. So you have to find the connection between the text and the image, not that it was in the film. These are all. Then I do a section on poetry as part of the Occam's Looking Glass. I'm working on an edition of T.S. Eliot's poems, and I'm illustrating the poems. I've been sending them to various publishers. I've had some pretty good feedback on that. This is The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, and the text and that. These are all self-generated projects. No one is telling me I have to do this. This is the cover to the article that Jorge and I are working on. It's the essay portion of the Occam's Looking Glass. And what it is, it's a study of Giambattista Tiepolo's famous fresco in Würzburg, Germany at the Treppenhaus. It happens to be the largest mural fresco in the world, twice the size of the Sistine Chapel. But nobody ever seems to know anything about it. And these are illustrations that go along with the article. It's an interdisciplinary article, and Jorge and I are working with an author he knew in Argentina, Jorge Borges, and also Wittgenstein, and then we're integrating music, mathematics, the arts, architecture, opera, is all integrated in the article. Then I do a lot of drawing, and these are small drawings that are then put into a grid that can be moved around. This is Thrice Told Tales, A Connection. This is a group picture of when I was a child. This is at a picnic during Labor Day. And I'll go quickly through these. This is my birth home, my mom and dad. We went to California in 1953-54. While in California, I actually went with my mom and dad to visit and saw Disneyland being built. It was in 1953-54, and it was in Anaheim, and there were just citrus orchards and dirt and earth movers. That was Disneyland for me until I went to it years later.
Oh.
Also, at that time on television, there was Max Fleischer had the first combining of a cartoon image with a human being before Disney. And it was called From the Inkwell, and it really influenced me. It made me think about what it really means to be an artist and to dip your pen into an inkwell. Until recently, I only did drawings with a dip pen. I'm from Watertown, Connecticut. This is my home. This is my mother's family, the Delands. My dad's family, immigrants from Russia. My grandparents were the immigrants. My great-grandfather, Roderick Deland, was a self-taught artist, and I followed from him. I remember as a kid going into the basement of my grandmother's house and seeing his old paint box and his easel, and it just inspired me like crazy. This is his portrait of George Washington after the battle at Yorktown. It used to hang in my grandmother's house at the top of the stairs, and we kids would run up the stairs to see Grandma, and we would all yell, "Hi, George!" And that's my brother and I running up the stairs yelling to, "Hi, George." This, I copied my grandfather's paintings. We still have the originals. This is a lot behind my grandmother's house. It was called Craig's Lot. And we used to fish in that little stream. We used to catch crawdads. We'd slide in the winter in the back lots. This is Christmas in my house in 91 Middlebury Road, Watertown, Connecticut. All 8 children plus several relatives. This is my sister's cover to her book, How the Elf and the Tree Came to Be. When she was 5 years old, she had pneumonia and almost died. And I was in an art class at the time, and I made a wooden angel and gave it to her after she got out of the, for her birthday when she got out of the hospital. She lives in Tennessee now. She still has the angel. So we called them Little Angel Books. The Elf and the Tree. The stories are based on her 3 granddaughters who come down from New York City where they live to visit her in the mountains of Tennessee. So she's writing these books for her granddaughters. I won't go into the story. There's the elf. Everything in these images are all my sister's house in Tennessee. And I did one for each of the seasons. That's me and my sister when I was 12 and she was 5 after she got out of the hospital. This is the last one I'll show you. Classic pinups through the ages. I'll read to you just, and this will be the end of my talk. The manuscript is 584 pages. There are original black and white ink and watercolor illustrations of 328 works of art from 21 recognized museums in the United States. It took me 8 years, $20,000, and trips back and forth between the West and East Coast to visit every one of these museums, not once, but sometimes twice and 3 times, to do the original drawings from the original artwork. There are also 12 color plates dispersed at appropriate historical intervals throughout the 6 chapters, 18 by 24 oil on canvas paintings by the author. This was done in Albuquerque where I rented a studio, and I hired a model. Her name was Gustafson, Christine Gustafson, and she was a professional model, and she modeled for me. She posed in outfits that I bought for her that were originally the kind of outfit worn by the models that we were portraying. So Miss Gustafson has posed in the oil paintings with 12 famous pin-up women of the mid-20th century. Museums represented are the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, Boston Museum, Clark Art Institute, Museum of Modern Art in New York, the Frick, the Art Institute of Chicago, Cleveland Art Institute, Cincinnati Museum of Art, Indianapolis Museum of Art, where I lived for 14 years, the Getty Museum of Antiquities in California, the Getty Museum itself, 2 separate museums, the Ashmolean Museum in Hartford, Connecticut, Ringling Museum of Art in Sarasota, Florida, where I did a major project for a company I was working for in New York City, National Gallery in D.C., the Hirshhorn in D.C., the Smithsonian, the Morgan Library, the New Mexico Museum of Art, the Kimball Museum of Art here in Texas, and the Huntington Museum. One other thing I want to mention to you is that people don't realize this, but the largest museum devoted to pin-up nose art of aircraft in World War II is here in Texas.
Oh, wow.
And this is a book by someone who works with it. It's called The Confederate Air Force in Harlingen, Texas. It's between Corpus Christi and Brownsville. So I'll go through, this is the last, and then I'll get out of your way. So this is historical. It starts 20,000 years ago. These are prehistoric figurines that are done of the female figure. Most of these are fertility figures, because a lot of what goes on about women, obviously, is reproduction, keeping the human race going. And a lot of the artwork in these early ages were all about that subject. Classical Greece and Rome. This is an incredible sculpture at the Getty Antiquities Museum in Santa Monica. I also have a chapter on Asian art. Even though this is focused really on Western art, I could not avoid doing Japan and India and China. This is through the Renaissance to the modern. I have a funny story about, let's see, Betty Grable, and it was a sentimental journey. The reason you've probably seen this image of her many times. The reason she's posed this way because she was pregnant at the time. She said, I don't want to look forward.
Oh, no.
The other thing that people don't realize is that in the latter part of the 20th century, as many women artists are now doing the pinup figure of women as there are men. It didn't used to be that way, obviously, because of the male gaze. But now we have a lot of women who are doing that, and one of them is interesting. Her name is Molly Siri, and she has a book that flips. On one side, bad girls, good girls.
Oh no.
Now this would, you'd have to see this really close up, but this is a step-by-step how I do my paintings. So it starts with, this was the model that she was posing as in that bathing suit, and then I used the background from a Fra Filippo Lippi painting from the early Italian Renaissance as a background. And then I do a complete pencil drawing, 18 by 24, that's the background. Then I put the layout in, and then I move forward with the color in the same way as in the skin tones book that I was talking about. These are quick sketches from the live model. These are the 18 paintings. I'm sorry, 12 paintings. And then this is what I submitted for your anthology. And I took the title, Forever Cotton and Wind Under Western Skies. That's it. I know I went over time. I'm sorry.
We're going to have you back, so hear more.
Well, this is like a semester's course in 20 minutes.
Well, thank you so much. Oh, I love that.
I will leave you with one last thing. The only really big published thing I've ever done in my life is the first ever Guide to American Art Schools. It was published by G.K. Hall in Boston and New York, London with Penguin Books.
Wow. Excellent.
Unfortunately, no longer in print.
Oh. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm so glad to see this turnout. This is good. And I am Linda Brody, and I do the programs. So I got Amy to come, and I think it's going to be very beneficial for everyone. There's 10 people signed up for one-on-ones with her, and good luck. I wish you good luck. I first met Amy in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, at an Ozarks writing conference, and that was in 2019. So then I haven't crossed paths with her again until now, but 5 years. What's 5 years? Amy is a senior literary agent and Subsidiary rights assistant manager. Her intuitive human understanding can help writers bridge the communication gap and jump into the publishing world. Her experience in the mental health field and yoga training help her guide and assist clients with stress and anxiety. How wonderful in this competitive industry. All of it is pulled together with a multitasking and hyper-organized brain. I have seen that. I have in action. So at the end of every day, she feels accomplished and grateful. And that's always good. She is seeking captivating stories of human connection and books that touch her heart. And I hope she will tell us the recent book that touched her heart. If you have one.
I have several.
Oh, yeah. I did too, so.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah,
I'll
just
sit
sit
down.
in.
Can everybody see me okay?
We'll move it if we can.
Let me just ask a couple questions. Who in here is traditionally published with a major publishing house? Right, couple good hands, right? So you've got agents, it's all going well? No. Okay. Just, so for those that are traditionally published, if I give more information, then just ignore me while I'm talking, because this might be some of the stuff you don't know. Who in here knows what an agent does?
Kind of, sort of.
A little bit, maybe. We just read, drink a lot of coffee.
I know it.
Talk
Do a
on the
lot
phone.
of reading.
I think I was the one that, I think I wrote someone.
I'll give you a little bit about my history. I got into publishing, 9 or 10 years ago. One of my girlfriends and I had always talked about writing together, and we got serious, and we wrote a book. And we were on Wattpad at the time, and so we decided to write these stories on Wattpad that we call them candy bars. YA romances to get the girls to like our other stuff, right? We started just building that platform. Well, we went to a conference and met with some agents, and the agent was like, holy cow, that candy bar's got a lot of attraction. Why don't we publish that? And we were like, oh, okay. That wasn't what we were fishing for, but it seemed, it's great. She brought us on. She started shopping the work. And then I realized I had always done the business side of that. My co-author, we both knew the writing side, but she really studied writing, and I really went into the business side. This is what we need to do to be published authors. And so we just took it really seriously and got it done, and we were published within about a year and a half, 18 months of that journey starting. I realized pretty quickly working with our agent, basically what I'm doing is being our agent. I realized that I might have a penchant for that because the creativity and the imagination was all her, and I was just the editor that would come in and be like, oh no, they can't kiss yet, and that can't happen yet, and you need to have these 3 marks hit before it is, technically right. So that is how I got into it, and I've been an agent since 2017, which is kind of hard to believe, and have been lucky enough to sort of follow my passion, sort of be able to do what I want to do and rep who I want to rep within the boundaries of I would like to sell it and make some money, that kind of thing. The agency I work for is Metamorphosis. They are a boutique agency out of Olathe, Kansas. And sort of similarly, this wonderful woman went, hey, why are all these agents coming out here and just picking people and then not treating them right? And so why don't we have agents here in the Midwest? And so she started her own agency, and I became a part of it. And now we hustle and get everything done. So the name of my little talk is Managing Author Expectations. So, and it might be just a hair depressing in case you don't mind. So it'll be kind of in question form. How long do you think it takes from writing a book to getting it published? Just throw out guesses.
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, somewhere between 2 and 5 years.
Yes.
Right?
I know.
The idea is, and it depends on the genre, right? Kids' books take a little longer. Illustrations take time. Romances can kick out a little bit faster. But once you write the book, the agent gets the book ready for sales. The agent shops the book for up to a year, and then it gets picked up and it probably should be published 2 years after that. So I like to say if it's published before 5 years, you've done good. And that's just one of those things that you kind of have to know going in. This is going to take a minute. And there is nothing, I can tell you all right now, there is nothing you can do to make a publisher move faster? Well, I mean, that's not true. Like, if you had a book coming out and became Taylor Swift's best friend, and she said something about your book, they would push it to get it out faster. So, if you touch the stars or something, you might have enough pull. But it takes that kind of thing. The rest of the time, they're like, we'll get there when we get there. Thanks for playing. Big and small publishers work like this. The big ones are worse than the small ones, because at least the small ones write you back. So that's just one of those things we need to be kind of considering about. It takes time. And who in here thinks you get paid in advance for books? Excellent. That is good to know, because you don't. You can get some advances. I see advances about $7,000. The biggest advances I've gotten were $30,000. But that same author who got the 30 got 100 for her next series. So it's one of those things. It takes time, and you've got to build it up and build it up. But advances are not nearly what they were 20 years ago. They are not investing. If they do invest in an advance, this is what always worries me about advances. And they feel like the author isn't earning out, which means their books aren't selling fast enough. They won't promote the author anymore. They'll use the loss of the advance as a tax write-off. And then that author's pretty much dead, because they were like, oh yeah, you didn't earn out, that's too bad. But they don't care. They make money either way. So saves on taxes. So that is another one of those things where, like, the business side is just killing the book side of publishing. We are not doing well in sales for books in 2024. Obviously, 2020, way up. 2021, still going up. 2022 came down. 2023 came down. 2024 came down. So we're kind of sliding back down into the pre-pandemic ways. The other thing to be familiar with while you're thinking about it is children's reading is dying. Not children's books, but middle grade and YA specifically are dying genres, because nobody remembered to teach Gen Alpha how to read. And I'm sure this beautiful book can read. I'm not saying that kids can't read. I am just saying that is what they are thinking is going to happen in the future. And if they are taught to read, they're not reading in book form. Now, I personally hope that something will come along like a Harry Potter, like Harry Potter did for millennials, and like everybody will fall in love with reading again. That just hasn't hit yet. But they are closing YA and MG imprints like crazy right now. Now, MG is also spinning into graphic novels, so that it's not, you could spin your work into a graphic novel and still get published that way, that kind of thing. And also YA can easily be spun into a romantasy, which is the new word that's the new it word in publishing, romantasy. And if you've got a YA and it's a fantasy, just call it a romantasy and make it good. It'll be all right. Because that is the big one hitting. All right. I want to just take a second and talk about cost. Some of you in here are self-published, yes? How much does it cost for them to make a book for you?
For me to have it printed, it's about $5 or $6 for me to get a copy of it.
Okay, so that's buying from Amazon or whatever. It's $5 or $6 that they are putting into it. Right. And that's a paperback, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So in the last few years, we have had huge supply chain issues. Obviously, we couldn't get paper, we couldn't get ink. Ink has gone up by like 26%. It's insane how much how much ink has gone up. Paper, it gets very political very quick, so forgive me for not knowing all of this stuff, but where we get our paper pulp is different and difficult, and a lot of paper used to come out of China and it was cheap, and now we're getting it sort of made in America and Canada, and it's more expensive, and so physical copies of things are getting more expensive, which is why it is almost impossible to keep your prices down, right? Because you're not going to make any profit. If you wrote a $6 book and you try to sell it for $7, and then they're like, well, I can get one for $3.99 over here. You know, it is absolutely difficult to keep up with some of these challenges for a print book. I am going to just be as digital as you want to be. At some point, all of us have to let go of the idea that to succeed, I have to have the physical copy in my hand. Because it's going to have to be, the physical copy is here, or on my phone, or whatever. It doesn't have to be in your hand. Because that's leaving. That is faster than I feel like it should. You know, at some point, we're all going to be excited to have books. Gen Z is hanging on to their books for dear life, like their print books, and their vinyl albums, and and I'm sure they'll always be present, but for new works coming out, it's going to be less and less, more and more digital platforms and digital read-along platforms, just because of the cost. Loads of publishers I work with are going to, Penguin Random House is going to digital arcs. They might do a few print arcs, but most of the time it's digital now, just to save themselves money, and because it's they're spending $100,000 on books that either get warehoused, get sent out as arts, and don't really get the use that they deserve. So they're just kind of having to be. If Penguin Random House has to be lean and mean, the rest of us need to be thinking about it too. All right. How much do you think authors make?
There's some negatives in that.
Is that the past or the present?
Present, past is a whole other story.
Whoa.
All right. I garnered this little statistic from a person that works in the business side of publishing. And let me start by saying, for a work to break in the market, that means it has to sell 20,000 units within that year. Or they estimate that it will. So at $1, so generally when you are published with anybody, you should get about $1 a book. And I say about. If it's 87 cents or $1.12, it should be in that ballpark. For a paperback book, like if it is the profit margin is too small in hardback books. So your profit margin on a hardback might be like 12 cents, just to let you know. Like paperback is where there's any kind of money, or digital. So say you get $1 per book, just for every sale you make, or every unit, because that's how they do it. Sorry, I lost my line about that. 18% of authors, only 18% of authors sell more than 20,000 units. So that means 82% of authors, right, they make $20,000 or less at major publishing houses. This is not us in this room. This is just, the authors that we see, the authors that we read, are making less than $20,000 per unit. Now, obviously, one of the easiest ways, and the ways most of them do, is they have multiple works. Loads and loads and loads of works. And when you have that many coming at you, then you don't have to worry about it anymore. So that's one of the ways I wanted to tell you is, if you're in a one-and-done situation, I think that's awesome, and I'm happy for you. But if you want to succeed in the publishing industry, write until your fingers fall off. Write and write and write and write. And if one doesn't work, it doesn't matter. Pull out another one and go. Because you need to have, I'd say, 7 to 10 before you expect any kind of success. In the same genre. They are expecting you to stay in the same genre. And I love creativity, but not to mix up the genres, because that messes with the readership, that messes with the market. I am currently shopping a fantastic gay retelling of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Fabulous. Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, it's got the humor, it's got the fun, it's got the whatever. Can't sell it. It is, gay men don't read sci-fi, and sci-fi readers don't read gay. And so they're like, if you hear, that's a niche market, that means there's not, 1 million people in this country interested in that topic. And I'm just talking major publishing houses. There's 1,000 indie publishers that would be thrilled to jump on this book. But that's the idea, is you can't mash up too many of the things. If you are writing in a genre, stay in that genre and build your name and write and write and write in that genre until you have sort of name recognition and some readers who will be like, oh yeah, I love your books. And then you can kind of go, okay, I'm going to tweak it up a little bit. Like, let's say, the iconic Nora Roberts. She wrote pretty basic romances for a long time. And then once she had it built up, she was like, I'm going to get weird.
Yeah.
Because she could, right? And that's the thing, is you have to get to that first, to get to that level first. You can't just come in like, I am going to write whatever I want to write, and everybody's going to love it. Because that's true, and you can self-publish it, and the 8 people that read it will love it, and I'm not doubting that. But to get with a major house, that is one of the key things, is to not muck about with the genres. And you have to know your genres. You have to know exactly what hoops you have to jump through, right? Linda, how many sex scenes need to be in a romance novel?
Well, usually 2, but it's changing.
Yes,
It is changing.
It is changing. Yeah,
and Sweet is taken over.
Yeah.
And yes, no, 0.
Yeah, well, for sweet ones for sure, but right, 2.5 for a romance novel. Like a proper romance, right? Jodie Thomas, loving her. I don't know if you've heard this story. She went out on a limb and wrote one with 7. Years ago. I don't know when this was. Years ago. Her editor called her and was like, are you okay? She's like, well, I was just feeling these people. And I don't know if they had her, I think they had her take out a few of the scenes, but, it was just, you gotta kind of stick to the formula of whatever genre you're in. And that's really, really critical. All right, so one of the other big things that they're looking for is name recognition. If they hear, I'll go back, because the easiest way to talk about this is, it makes me a little ill. What was one of the best-selling nonfiction book last year? Anybody know? Of 2023?
Nonfiction?
Yeah. It's a memoir.
Oh, I bet I read it. Can't think of the name.
I'm just looking at you. I bet you didn't.
I read 2.
Britney Spears.
Oh.
Britney Spears, ghost-written, horrible memoir.
Yeah.
Was one of the best-selling ones, just because she's pop culture. The Kardashians could just write the word duh
And people.
and they would publish it because it's name recognition. And that is absolutely one of the things that they're sort of desperate for, tapping into that in society. The best-selling book of last year was It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover.
Oh, yes.
Which was published 8 years ago. Yeah, and the reason it did so well last year is because during COVID, Colleen got on TikTok and just started hustling butt. She was on Facebook doing real good. She started hustling butt using her marketing skills on TikTok and just blew up over COVID. And then it took 3 years, and then sure enough, she won it last year. She sold 1.5 million books of that one single book.
Wow.
So those are the kind of things you have to be. Okay, I wrote a book and I had a terrible year. Maybe 8 years from now you'll do well. You got to give yourself a grace. I tell everybody, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You know, it's a marathon, and you can kind of keep feeding yourself as you write more and more books to kind of keep you going and kind of keep you fueling, because you just never know. One may hit and one might not. Let's think. All right, so publishing is slow, right? I kind of talked about that already. It's always going to be slow, and there's no way around it. And I covered that a little bit earlier, but it is one of those things where it's like, I'm not going to get my cover in enough time to do this, whatever it might be, all the promotional things. And you have to just kind of step back and at the end of the day go, okay, it's a book. It's a book. And as authors, you need to take a step back from your work once it's done and go, I wrote a book. I'm proud of my book. It's a beautiful book. But it's just one book, and it doesn't define me, and it isn't my end-all, be-all of existence. Because they do, our little book babies, become that to us. Like, we're like, oh God, the box from Amazon got water on it, and I'm going to die. We can really just order more books. Yeah. It's not the end of the world, you know? It's frustrating, it's irritating, it's life. But that's a big thing, too, is just to kind of learn to distance yourself between the outcome of the book and their future. All right. One of the things that I want to tell all authors is know your demographic. A little bit about an agent. If you don't know who's going to buy your book, then you haven't written the right book, right? Your book should say, I am this genre and this genre. I hit all of the marks for both. I have the right word count for all of this, and I know, women aged 30 to 60 are, in the Midwest will love this work. Like, you have to know all that almost going in, and kind of, you don't have to write to that specifically, but it's about knowing your genre and who's going to read. Again, like I was talking about with the one with the gay sci-fi. You have to realize, okay, these people read this and these people read that. You do have some crossover markets. Romance readers also read YA. As an author, when I was doubling down on how you need to write in the same genre, if you want to write in a different genre, it needs to be either under a different name or have some sort of relational something. But if you, as Nora Roberts did, you can cross over from romance into YA. There are things you can't do. If you write YA or children's books, you can't write sexy. There's no erotica for you. That's a no-no. Like, nobody wants that. And you could do it under a pseudonym and doing, really kind of keep it separate, but that would be a really sticky world. I just don't think anybody needs to worry about it. So that's another thought, is like you just have to be careful because your persona becomes so consumed so quickly by that writing. 50% of your time needs to be on the business side of writing. So who in here has a website, an author website? Okay. Who in here has 2 or more social medias linked to that website? Good. Yeah, that's the basis. That's the bottom line. Author website and 2 social media links. Now, I talked about demographics a second ago. Those social media links need to be to your demographic. If you're writing YA, you better be on Book Talk, right? If you are writing romance, Instagram is the way to go. If you are writing romance, Facebook is the way to go. If you are writing children's books, why would you be on Facebook? Only old people are on Facebook. Right? Instagram for the pictures. And, be where the millennials are, be where the kids are having kids. So you have to think that kind of stuff through. Also, do your due diligence and look, Twitter, not a great place to sell a book. It's a great place to create a writing community, to learn actually to play with your own writing, and to kind of figure out how am I going to take this and squish it down into 240 words. Stuff like that is fun on Twitter. But you're only up for 1/100th of a second, and maybe someone will catch you in a feed somewhere. It is not worth any kind of financial or even time, really, to try to sell on on Twitter. That's or X, or you know what I mean. But that's the thing, learning all of that stuff, being so involved in what it takes and what it takes socially. The other thing to think about is with your website and with your 2 social medias, you are in charge of your own publicity. And that's what you're doing. You're not marketing. I mean, some of you might be self-pubbed and you might be actually marketing from them. But that is your publicity space, which is a very different thing. You have a public persona that you will be expected to keep up by any publisher that picks you up. Whether they are, 3 guys, in a closet, or whether it is Penguin Random House. They expect that same level of constant engagement. And they will monitor that and be like, hey, you've had people reach out to you and you haven't responded, or you've got a signing coming up and you didn't put anything on your social media. That's actually part of my job too, is to kind of be like, hey, we've got to let human beings know where you're going to be and what you're going to do. And so it's absolutely critical to schedule in what I call social media time every day. And whether it is a persona, because it doesn't have to be actually you. But sort of the writer side, it's usually not difficult to say, oh, look at me having a cup of coffee writing a book, or something like that, or, oh, my cat's on my computer again. And you can complain about it, oh, I just can't get the words out today. Things like that. That leads me to my next thing. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. Do not go into bitching about the publishing industry and trolling other authors or agents or anything like that, because we ignore it because we're not going to fight back on paper, but we certainly don't forget. And we have had many experiences where we have had to cut ties with authors. So I'll tell you a couple stories. I had just gotten a book deal for one of my authors, and they had asked her to change her name because they wanted her name to be initials, because she had self-pubbed. And to trick the algorithm to run it as a debut, they wanted to change her name. She was super frustrated by that request, and on Twitter, Facebook, I don't know, on one of the things, she put up the image of Chris Pratt in Guardians of the Galaxy doing this, right, flipping up, saying, this is how I feel about being asked to change my name. That was, 11 o'clock in the morning. They rescinded the contract by 2 in the afternoon, and I had dropped her by the end of the day. and she's not published anything since, because you can't do that. Had another wonderful author, fabulous author, I believe they were a trans author, and they were getting harassed online by a troll. Just horrible harassment, and finally she had said, I'm done, you know what, go away, get off and said hateful stuff back to the troll. The troll screenshotted that and took it to her publisher, and her publisher dropped her. Because, they don't want any drama. And that is the kind of stuff you always have to be wary of when you're in the social media world. Because they want you to respond when someone below says, hey, that looks cute, or, that book looks great. They want you to say, oh, thank you so much. You can buy it here, or whatever it might be. But you can't respond to the negative to almost anything, because, those trolls, they'll get you. So those are my little horror stories. The other thing is, don't burn bridges. Manhattan is a tiny island, and the industry as a whole is very small, and we talk and know each other. We all know who the toxic authors are and why we shouldn't sign them. So, just not that long ago, we had a new author talking with us, and I reached out to one of my publisher friends, and he was like, oh, no, that person, did this, and this. And I was like, oh, good, that's good enough for me. That's a no for me. Because they were just being high maintenance. They were demanding. They were expecting a lot more than what his small publishing house could provide. But that meant they're going to have those demands on me and not understand the healthy boundaries of a professional relationship, which is tough to do, but it is a thing. Okay, so a little bit I hinted at how many books break in the market. Right? Does it, less than 18% of books break in the market over a year? So that means most books that are being published this year are going to make between $2 and $100. And that's the reality of all of it. And I think I mentioned, too, that a major publishing house, if it doesn't break, they just use it as a tax write-off, right? They don't care. What questions do you guys have? Because that'll lead me. I've got some more information from publishers, but what questions do you have? Because I feel like I'm all over the place today. Yes?
So I'm a self-published and mystery suspense trilogy, and I want to do another one. I'm working on another fourth one within this. But is there any way that a traditional publishing house will ever pick those up?
Sure. They'll pick up the second one. The first one, if you sell 150,000 copies, somewhere around there, they'd be interested. They want money. Yeah, and they'll take your money. They don't have a problem with that at all. But if your next series is, kind of, I don't want to say fresh, but slightly different than the first series, shop that next series and see if you can get that published. Because that's what they do. I would say my financial recommendation is keep your first one and then try and sell your second one to a traditional publishing house. And both, you'll make more money off both, because the writers you'll pick up on the next series will go back and read your first series. So you'll get all of your backlist money instead of, if they buy it, they'll end up promoting just your new work, and then they'll take all of your backlist money. So that's my agent brain talking. Okay. But I always say, write a series, write a few books, self-publish. That doesn't hurt you at all. I mean, like I said, worst that happens, they ask you to change your name so they can trick the algorithm. I mean, you have to do what you have to do to trick the computers. But usually it's pretty close. I have an author, and her name's Wendy Million, and she goes by W Million for one of her series. And she doesn't care. They're all in the same spot. They're all, sort of together. It's just that's what they asked her to do, and it was fine. So that might be a thing, but it shouldn't be a problem at all. Yes?
Instead of 18% kind of break-in every year, is there any type of analysis that you do as a publishing house in terms to speculate what are the genres that are
Yes.
that are probably going to take off within like the next 5 years?
Yes. Yes. I don't have that information now. I wish I did. So yeah, more and more what they're doing is if an editor likes a manuscript, they run it through an AI decider of could this author and this work make this much money, and the machines figure it out. Less than the humans. The humans can fight for it, be like, no, this is my passion project, I'm going to do it. But they have to really fight. And if it's a fail, that'll come back on them. But yeah, no, they have AI programs that basically decide whether or not a work will make money based on the genre, the word count, the demographic it's pitched to, and the author. Yes?
I've kind of found in the experience whenever I've had to do query letters that it's gotten to the point, whether an agent or a publisher, that usually realistic approach and assuming is that if one that's a publisher or an agent is not interested in the initial query letter, you might as well assume and just save yourself the time of bother and sending them a proposal on that. Is that a good realistic approach for a writer to consider in terms of how to approach and to make sure that that query letter is as concise and tight as possible so that you don't waste your time kind of sending proposals that go nowhere?
Yes, 100%, 100%. And also, I get pitched works that are so far out of my wheelhouse, and they're like they've changed the genre, like I wouldn't notice. Oh, by the way, I've written a 300,000 word romance, and then I read it, and it's like it takes place in space. And I'm not saying I don't love sci-fi. I'm just like, no, like that's not how that works. Or even more interesting, I was pitched a 300,000 word erotica.
Oh, God.
Y'all, erotica is 30,000 words or less. Small. And I was like, and they were just deciding it was the thing, it was going to be the Bible of erotica. And I was like, that's not a thing. And I have gotten pitched, I think one of my favorite ones was I was pitched a knockoff of Harry Potter. It just happens to take place in another country. And I was like, nope. And it's just so many things where they're trying to kind of trick their way into me reading the work. And I can tell you when I'm open for submissions, I can get 1,000 submissions in a month easy. And the reality is I don't look at all of those. I don't have time. I'm doing 5 other things. So I have an assistant go through them and give them grades. And then I'll go through after she's graded them and look and be like, okay, yeah, that one looks good. Let's pull that one. Let's read that one, whatever, that kind of thing. Just because I don't have enough time for all of it. But with that being said, look at what the agent has produced. Look at what they've had success in even, right? Mine has been in YA and romance. That's where I've done well. I've done some weird picture books that have come out and done well. But I repeatedly have people trying to sell me horror. And I have one author right now. She's a romance author and her name's Sarah White. She's fabulous. She got a divorce and she wrote a psychological thriller where the husband and the wife are serial killers. And it was
Did she kill her husband?
It was very cathartic. But it's really well written. But one of the other agents who specializes in that, I was like, here, you read this. I'm going to read this. I was like, I'll read a romance for you and do that. I'm not, because I can't speak to, what marks it needs to hit. I mean, I can read a romance, and if it hits the marks, then I'm like, okay, yep, it's got what it needs. Because that's what an agent really should do as your first editorial eyes, to be like, okay, it hits this, and this. This is what they're looking for. I think this will break in the market. I think I can sell this. If you change, these two little things. Some agents get a little bit like, well, it would be better if you did this, or better, and I don't think that's a great thing either. Agents don't need to have their finger in the pie. The editors will be the ones to really kind of bring it up and make it shine. I just need to have it clean enough to go to an editor, so an editor can read it and be like, okay, this is the one I can see. I can make this work. Pardon me. Yes.
An additional follow-up so also another thing, probably I'm wondering to make it easier, quick, because someone like an agent, publishers have a bunch of things where you have a bunch of folks getting there. Does it make it easier for someone like yourself to say if someone who is going to do a query letter on it kind of takes their approach rather than try to give you a long missive, just to act like pretend like you're a customer in a restaurant and you're the waiter presenting a menu on that, and then just keeping it brief?
That is a very good way of talking about it. I have a thing I can send you on how to write an effective query letter. I can talk about it right now unless you want me to talk about something else. So to write an effective query letter, it's 3 paragraphs. That's it. First paragraph is the title, it is the word count, it is the genre, and maybe like a sentence, a little bit of a hook sentence in there. Nothing beyond that in that first bit. Second paragraph, you get 1 paragraph to sum up the entire story, and the end of it is, will they get together or won't they? Can they save the world? Question mark. It is that. Let me pull some up. And these are going to be my queries, not. So, all right. So this is one I'm sending out for one of my works, and it's the first paragraph. I have a hilarious and emotional commercial fiction for your consideration today. Into the Blue Again, by Second City trained comedy writer and author. At almost 89,000 words, think of it as though Eleanor Oliphant from Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine is the lead character, and this is where I leave you. So that, what I just did was what's called, I used a frame and I used a comp. A comp, and this is what we all live in our brains. Do y'all know what comps and frames are? Yeah, pretty much. Okay, so I'll say it again, sorry. Comps are books that are comparable to what you have written, right? They're not going to be Twilight, and they're not going to be the Bible, and they're not going to... I am serious, I have had people comp to the Bible. But, so go out and find somebody that's like, okay, this lady writes with the same sense of humor I write with. I can use her as a comp. And you can even say, I use the same sense of humor as this author. And a frame is when you pull in movies and you get some movie premise going. I pitched one that was like The Goonies meets Breakfast Club. And it was a middle grade adventure story and, whatever. So, and you can use both together and you can use both separate, but that needs to be in that top paragraph, a comp or a frame or both, so that the person reading it gets an idea right off the bat, oh, okay, I get this little premise. I get this plot. And then it is a paragraph about the actual book. And then the last paragraph is just completely your bio. That's it. Your bio, your achievements, what you've done in writing. It can have a sentence about your cat or your family. That's okay. But it's not about that. It's more about, this is just, Jennifer is the author of Girls Who Wear Glasses, and Enchanting Sarah Greenberg, and has studied writing at Second City in Chicago, alumna of Northern University, bachelor degree in theater, master's in teaching, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then at the end is a link to your website. That's it. That's what every agent wants to see. Now, I say that some agents want the middle, what I call the middle paragraph. They want that up front, and then they want below it to be this is where, how the word length and the genre and stuff like that. But any combination of those three things is a query letter. Simple as that. It's really not hard. It is really hard to write that middle paragraph, to give birth to your book, squeeze it into a little tiny hole, and then hope it comes out cute. Like that's not an easy thing to do. But that is, and it should all fit on one page. If it goes longer than one page, unless it's a picture books are a whole other thing that we can talk about. But it should all be on one page, because if you can't have that with brevity, all synopsis, unless it's sci-fi, all synopsis one page. So just to let you know, if you've got some length in a sci-fi or something that's 130,000, they'll give you a page and a half for that. It's brutal. Yeah.
What do you put for your bio if you don't have any publishing credits yet?
Member of Cap Rock Writers. Any writing groups you're in, if you're part of the anthology, kind of, put that in there. If you get on there and send stuff out to different conference awards things and see if you can get some awards, they're not difficult to get. Not because the judges are hard. I'm just saying there's so many of them. There's so many writing contests that having any kind of accolade from a writing contest is really good. And then sometimes it can be, if you're writing about marine biology, it's pretty important that you have in there, oh, by the way, I'm a marine biologist. So it doesn't have to just be I'm a writer. It can have, I was inspired to write as a marine biologist, so they know going in, okay, he knows what he's talking about, right? That kind of thing. Not that you have to be. But, so this particular one, the author is on the spectrum, and the main character is on the spectrum. And I had to get that in here, so they wouldn't read it and feel like it wasn't written by someone who wasn't in that same space. Excuse me. So that's queries. Any other query questions? Yeah.
Well, actually, I was going to ask you to back up just a minute. What are the things that the AI, you said manuscripts are run through AI to see how much money they will make. And you said they look for word count, genre, and what?
Like author presence, things like that.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know if the full manuscript is run in. It's just information is fed into it, and then they decide, okay, will this, work? Are there enough similar to this, and how did they sell last year? Versus, who do we know is that kind of stuff. They feed in all kinds of information, but basically, word count, genre, and then they might do just a few of the things like right now it would be word count, genre, dragons. Good author, and they probably have a win, But that's the difficult part is they used to have human beings doing it, and I'm sure they still do in some companies, and I can't speak because I'm being quite broad here, but it is going more and more into that analysis of how we can make money from it instead of let's make this book and then make it make money. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right. Yes.
With such a dim outlook on the potential for financial success as solely a writer, can you speak at all to the other things you can do with writing, such as speaking?
Yeah, and you can't, that's just how difficult it is with major publishing houses.
Yeah.
Self-pub. Our self-pubbed authors are millionaires, some of them. Not because they are publishing a book and just putting it out there and not doing anything and all of a sudden 100,000 people buy it. But if you play it right, we have one author, Ivy Smoke, and she invests about $100,000 a month in Amazon ads and promotions and makes about $145,000. So that doesn't suck, you know? And she didn't start out with that much, but she found the more she does for advertising, the more she does for all of her own self-marketing, the more she makes. So now she's about at that level. You know, and she started with just $5,000 or whatever she could afford to start with, and then just found out this is where I can make money.
Could you say who that is?
Her name's Ivy Smoke.
Ivy Smoke.
Yes, terrible author. Not good. I mean, I love her to death. It is real trashy, sexy, poorly written. But boy, she knows business, and it is impressive.
But a good example is Colleen Hoover, who started out as an indie author.
Yep.
And she was very good at marketing and publishing.
Yes.
Publicizing. Put the word out.
You know,
and now she's a major, with a major house and making tons of money.
Making tons of money, all the things. But that's the thing. I would say, you know, financially, I am going to say, if you have the time, the capacity, the support, self-pub and study, learn how to promote your work. Now this I'm going to have to Google, because man, I can never spell this guy's name. I hope I have internet.
Yeah, the library should have some.
All right. I haven't gotten on Wi-Fi here. So his name is David, I'm just grabbing my phone, David Gungren. I don't know, he's Irish, it's hard.
Garing? David Garing?
Something like that.
G-A-U-G-H-R-E.
Yes.
He writes how to publicize your books.
How do you spell it?
G-A-U-G-H-R-E-N. Say that one more time. G-A-U-G-H-R-E-N. I'm pretty sure.
There we go. I mean, you can't see on my phone, but this guy, I follow him. So the easy thing for you are gonna write down would be Amazon Decoded is his book that he wrote. And I don't know, sometimes it's $1, sometimes it's free. It's one of those things. He uses it for promotional work. And Let's Get Digital. And he worked at Amazon, and he's the one who can tell you, this is what works at Amazon and this is what doesn't. And this is how you get super buyers, and this is how that's the book. So if you want to make money on self-publishing, he is the guy to follow. And to listen to, and to kind of go, okay, this is how I can really make my own money this way, and have it be more than just a side hobby, or more than just I wrote a book and I'm sad because nobody read it. But again, that kind of goes back into that this is the side of hustle, that 50% of business. Like, you really have to do business 50% of the time and write the other 50% of the time. There's no in between anymore. It's just not like it was 20 or 30 years ago.
No.
He's just got the whole book posted online.
Yeah.
It's doesn't cost anything.
Sometimes
Through Amazon.
Okay. Yeah. So there's no reason not to follow this guy, obviously.
Yeah.
But I've met him, and he did a wonderful talk, and it's just the idea of like you really have to figure it out. You've got to study it, right? You've got to study. This is how I do the advertising. This is what I have to do, and when you do, it works. You were going to ask a question.
Yeah, I had a question, and that is, you're in the industry, this is your job, this is what you enjoy, your passion. What are some of the out-of-the-box things you've seen people doing regarding self-publishing, regarding like visual? We don't really have the magazines we used to have.
Right.
It used to be you'd pick up a magazine, and whether it was the Vogue and it was a big, huge issue, you'd look at the outfits and you would just drool over, I want to find something like this, We've kind of lost that. Whether it's home designs, fashion, whatever. And same way with books, the tangible, that type of thing.
Right.
So Instagram is a big hit because it's visual.
Right.
So are you seeing like visual self-publications where people are like mixing the medias and things? What are you seeing that's really getting traction?
So one of the things that I sell as a sub-rights person is it's called gaming rights. And they don't turn a book into a video game. They turn the book into a read-along. So kids can read along on their phone. And to buy another chapter, they have to give another coin or something, whatever it might be for whatever program. But that is huge. Excuse me. Absolutely huge. Selling gaming rights. And then platforms like Scribd is a great one. So Scribd is audio, and now they do audio and ebook. So basically, you buy a subscription to their platform, and you have access to 100,000 books and 100,000 ebooks. And I don't know what it costs, but that is what I'm seeing more and more and more of, the digitizing of everything, and in all different formats.
So what was the name of that publication, the children's books where they read along? Is it an actual platform?
Yes, there's like 10 of them.
Okay.
From Wattpad, this is probably one of the first ones, that's out of Canada. And then there's Flamingo, there's, I'm just trying to think of all the ones we have sold to. Again, I could just Google it. But they're they're Story Online, Epic, Starfall, Bookshare, Oxford Owl, Reading IQ. I mean, it's on and on and on and on.
Okay. So on that platform, can you do like your own illustrations and things like that? Can you?
Yeah.
You can just build the whole thing, use it the way you want to.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, you create it, and different platforms have different, limits. Some are new and a little bit sad. Well, you know how it is when you see a very bad book cover that it's like, and the title under it, because it's been translated, is, two vampires who like each other or something. So you've got to find the right fit for you.
Right.
But there are a ton of them out there.
So one last follow-up question.
I think
On
that's
that
a great
type of
title.
idea where you're doing the read-along, that type of thing, do they ever get to the point where they actually publish the book so that the kid has something tangible if they want it?
Wattpad does.
Okay.
I can't speak to any of the other digital first place. Scribd does, they produce only the audio because they buy e-print rights and audio. And then they will produce the audio so you can buy the audio from Amazon. So like you can do that, but that's an audio form, not physical print book. But they aren't looking for, I mean, the physical print book is already there. So they're just adding on with that. So it depends on the platform for sure. And it's going to depend on the demographic. For children's books, they want more on tablets and more on phones because little kids, I mean, Gen Z want paper, but Gen Alpha, we're just trying to get them to read anything. That's the truth. Just trying to. And we might see, we may have a huge swing. I mean, this industry swings so far and changes so much. I mean, it's been in a slow decline for the last 600 years. And so, but it's always changing, it's always moving, and I mean, go back like 2,000, 2,800 years, something like that. And Plato once said, you know, the kids don't act right and everybody's writing a book. Like, it's just, so it's always been out there. It's just one of those things where now we have all of these other options to make it a little bit, we're trying to make it easier, but I think sometimes it makes it more complicated. All right, yeah.
I have this kind of different question, I guess, but I noticed that J.K. Rowling in her last 2 books, they were written as screen scripts. And you don't ever see a novel as a screen script.
Right.
They were the Fantastic Beasts. And do you ever think about publishing novels in a screen script format? For YA, you said they're not reading anymore. They don't.
Right.
So I don't know if that's why she did it as a screen script or because she's going to make millions off the screen script that's going to become the movie. But do y'all ever, that's the only published work I've ever seen, screen scripts that have been in hardback.
Yeah, no, aside from that, and she can do whatever she wants, so
Yes,
she gets to be the exception to the rule, but unless it is the script for something that went huge, like the script for Godfather, they would absolutely bind that sucker because they know people would buy it.
Yeah.
But it's not generally done. Except for, like I said, maybe special exceptions. And it's really easy to get the scripts.
Yeah, on free online.
Yeah,
I've seen
pretty
them
much.
pretty much everywhere. Except for those 2 books.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the reason she printed those 2 books could be to copyright them, because, man, she likes to copyright a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So she might have done that on purpose.
Yeah. Okay.
And gone, I don't care if I make a whole lot of money off it. Nobody else is going to steal this or put these online for free. That seems like a very her thing to do.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
But no, generally, and there's not a ton of crossover between. Like I don't bring on screenwriting stuff because I am not going to personally shop it out in Hollywood. What I do is, as the sub-rights agent, I take books to. Reese Witherspoon's people, or I get, that kind of stuff. The producers or Hallmark has I've got a pretty good relationship with Hallmark. They've reached out a few times, and that's been really good. But I'm not out there on the street with, I've got this manuscript, because more from my side, it's I've got a book. They'll find a person to turn it into a screenplay. And that's good enough for me. That's all the business I need to have there. Because they option the book and I'm out. That's good enough for me.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. You had something? Did anybody else?
Well, I was going to ask, just as a follow-up to kind of these conversations, as an agent, is this, are you trying to sell it to basically any of those platforms and publishers?
It depends on my author. Some authors, I had an offer for gaming rights for one of my authors, and she was like, no. And I said, okay. And then I have some authors who are like, we don't care, we just want it published, A lot of my authors at this point are like, okay, we want to, have the biggest houses look at it, and then if they get rejected by most or all of the major publishing houses, they kind of have to take a deep breath, and I'm like, you can put it in the shelf. you can publish it yourself, or I can go to a small press with it, and then you'll have at least a beautiful work in your hands. And so I kind of give them that option, because it's not going to hurt my feelings if they self-publish it. And I just want, there's so many good books out there, I just want my authors' works to get made so that at least they can be out there helping in the world. So that's a big part of what I do. But I work with my authors, and I don't say, oh, I need you to write this so that you can make a lot of money so that I can be a successful agent. I'm just like, life happens, like the lady who got a divorce. Take your time. Whatever comes out, we'll figure it out together. So it's a very teamwork situation, because you just never know. And I have wonderful authors who will write 3 or 4 books a year. And honestly, both of those authors are bought until about 2026. They have so many series kind of stuck that they're in. And I have another author that I was just talking about. Took her 3.5 years to write her last book. Just life happens. So you just kind of have to roll with it, and like I said, do the best you can, and just kind of not be too antsy. Yes?
Financial question. Back to the 18% for a second.
Yeah.
Of that 18% that are successful, do you know how many of those end up being a New York Times bestseller and actually hang on for a while, or are they just like a bestseller for a week and then they disappear?
Well, that's a real good question. So I could have answered this differently 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I would have said they hung on for a while. But the majority of our New York Times bestsellers are coming from TikTok, or celebrities that are TikTokers who are doing things like cookbooks or helpful, help around the house books, or this or that, or people that maybe shouldn't write books, but we're told you can make money if you write a book. And those have been consistently for the last 2 years some of the top New York Times bestsellers, instant bestsellers, in fact. And then the rest we're looking at, the Tom Clancy's and the standard bearers of authors in the United States take up the rest of it. But it depends on those specific authors, right? I think some of them will maybe just write that one book, and then whatever happens in social media, maybe it'll just fall away, right? I don't know. Here's a better example. I'm being too vague. There was an adorable fella, and he had a pug named Noodle. And Noodle on social media would have a bones or no bones day. And if Noodle had bones, they would go for a walk. And if Noodle had no bones, he would lay around. And so it became a thing that it was like, oh, everybody's having a no bones day. So that meant if Noodles was lazy, we could all be a little lazy or something. Wrote a book about Noodles. Noodles died.
Oh, no.
Wrote a book about Noodles' death now. Now he's got a new dog.
Oh.
Spaghetti.
So it's just one of those things of, is he going to keep writing books about pugs as long as they let him? Yes, apparently. Is it a good book? No. But is it pop culture? Yes. And so that's one of the things. It's like, and honestly, no disrespect. I'm sure it's a very sweet book. It's just not, the kind of thing that I would think would be beneficial to a child. It's a pop culture book. And, so yeah, that's a big part of that is that 18%, and then the part of that 18% too is just gigantic outliers that skew the data. They make so many millions that it messes everything up. Which you never know. It's always a lottery ticket. I mean, hey, last year Colleen Hoover was one of those people that skewed the data. And she's just like one of us. You know, we're 200 miles east of here. She's probably in a meeting just like this. All right, anything else?
There's a change for us.
Yes, sorry.
Is there a certain cap that you've seen with agents? Like, do y'all, is it kind of like a caseload where you say, okay, this is as many authors as I want to represent, and that's it until maybe one of them drops off?
Yeah. And everybody's different. Every agent is different. Some agents handle a lot fewer, and then some agents can handle a lot more. I know there's agents at big agencies that have like 100 clients because they have like 2 assistants. You know, my assistant is my little dog that sits on my lap.
She's so cute.
Doodle. Okay.
But it absolutely, it depends on the person, it depends on the agent. You know, we have some agents that are with us and they only have like 7 or 8 clients because they work full time. And they're just doing this in their spare time. Yeah. And doing what they can to help. So everybody's different. I've got like 42 or 43. So, and at this time though, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm good. I could probably take on a few more people. So if you would ask me that 6 months ago, I would have been like, and I had the same number of clients then, I would have been like, no. Because I was just in a different place. I hadn't sold as much work, and I had more on my immediate plate. And now I don't. Yes, sir.
As an agent, how much do you charge an author?
Any agency should only charge you 15%, right? If they charge you more than that, that's not okay, all right? The exception to that is if your agent is shopping your rights in Germany, and I have taken your book to my German co-agent and said, German co-agent, please shop this. And they do, and they bring you a deal. German co-agent gets 10%, and then your agency gets 10%. That's the only time. If any agent tells you it is going to be more than 15%, they are not okay. Do not do it. Even if they're like, but I do this, and this. No, don't do it. It's not okay. Should always be 15%. Yes?
If you write in different genres with different pen names, would it be best to get different agents for each of those?
No, you are not allowed to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. It is, I don't want to say you're not allowed. It is frowned upon. For agents to have to think about or work with other agents and different crossovers and where things are being shopped and what is happening is super difficult. And it just gets real complicated real fast. So it's best just to have the one agent who kind of knows what all is going on and can, hopefully an agent that can support you in all the genres you write in. Well, and like my author, I've got her work on submission right now, the scary one I didn't read. Because I know it's good, right? And I know how to sell it. That's not an issue. I just didn't want to read it. So if you can find an agent like that, right?
It's versatile.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you want to find an agent that you authentically like, I think. I think that's really important because my friend used to say it's like a marriage, right? You have to be able to trust them. You have to be able to listen to them when they say, calm down, it's just a book. At the end of the day, it's just a book. You have to be able to trust that they are out there championing your book to the best of their ability. And for you to feel like, okay, this is the kind of person that I want on my side. I'm a bit of a cheerleader. That's just who I am as a human being. Like when one of my author's books come out, I do a big book blast and I send it to the whole group and I ask everybody to support them and I try to just sort of promote a little bit. But that's it. That's the only promotion I do because that's actually not part of my job. Agents don't promote. We just sell the work and then look at new works and edit and do what we can. But that is, I have met some people that have said to me that they didn't find that I was very professional, and I'm fine with that. I am not a mean New York agent, and I've met them. I'm never going to be that. I am always going to be the Midwestern girl who's like, hey, I know how to read a contract inside out and backwards, and I will not let anything slip through the cracks of a contract. But don't, because I think there's two people who are like, oh, well, no, she's a little Midwestern agent. She's stupid. We can con her. And I always clap back with, no. I am paying attention, and I know how to be bitchy. But I just don't I couldn't hold a persona like that. I just don't have that much attachment. I'm just not that. You can't live in Oklahoma and be like that. So yeah, you have to find the right one for you. And I've had people say, I just thought this other person was a better fit for me, and that's fine. That's understandable, because it makes sense. And sometimes they just think their work will do better with an agent that has had success with that work. That's fine too. It's okay. You've got to find the right person. Yes.
Are you currently open to queries?
Yes.
Cool.
Not from outside this room.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. Yes.
Is there a professional way to let go of an agent? I know we're talking about query letters and not burning bridges. Kind of like what you just said about if someone feels, well, this agent, I think, I will do more success with that. How's the professional way to go about that by basically saying, hey, I guess we'll just terminate this?
Yeah. Thank you so much for this opportunity. If you haven't signed with that agent yet, you've got a couple agents interested in you, and you make your decision, just send them an email and say, thank you so much. I've decided to go a different direction, and I really appreciate all the time you put in, and just be pleasant like that. And then to terminate with an agent, within the contract, we have a 1-year contract, because that gives you about enough time to figure out if it works for the person or not. And then it's like within 30 days of the termination of contract, they can reach out and be like, hey, I loved working with you, or we've had our differences, and so I feel like we should go separate ways. The reason we have to have contractual stuff is me personally, I've had deals on the table where another agent has approached the author and said, hey, I can get you more money for this if you ditch your agent, and then turn around and sell it to the same place I was selling it to 3 weeks later. So there are some caveats in there to try and protect agent and agency time and money. But because there's some shady stuff that happens in this industry for sure. Not necessarily from the author side, but man, there's some publishers out there that, it's rough. Any other questions? All right. Oh, yes, sir.
So I just had one. For best use of your time this afternoon, what kind of information do you generally like to have presented in the pitch meeting? I've never been on one.
Well, since we're using this as one-on-ones, and we have all kinds of time, loads of time. It's not a 2-second pitch. You have to throw out the information as fast as possible. It'll just be a conversation. And even if the book's not finished yet, or you have questions about stuff, whatever it might be, you just hit me with it at that time. That's why we kind of set them up like this, so it wouldn't be oh my God, here's my book, and anxiety. It can be more of a casual and relaxed, hey, this is what I wrote, what do you want to know about it? You don't have to know how to pitch perfectly. I can coach you through it. That's the joy of having these long one-on-one times. You're welcome. All right, anybody else? All right, okay, I'm going to...
Thank you. This is great. speaking.
I think she went to call the restaurant, so.
Oh, okay, so,
Then I have a question for
Oh,
you,
okay.
all the leadership and all that. You know, in Mahon Library, all our books are stuck in the back corner.
I know it. I know it.
written 2 letters and no response. I think this organization needs to contact whoever it is and ask why they're punishing us to stick us in the back corner behind a foreign book.
And then they act like it's
And then when I have friends go in, they go over to the picture section and look
I know it.
under the author names, and I'm not there, and then they turn around and walk out.
I know it.
So,
It's a
you know,
problem.
why
It's
is it,
an ongoing problem.
why is it in Lubbock and not in the other towns?
And when they go to the card catalog, it's listed as a picture.
Oh,
But it's not with the picture.
no. No, and so they can't find it. And
So I
they
think
go
this
out.
organization needs to do something about that.
Well, we've tried.
In what way?
Tried multiple times, talking to them face to face.
And why won't they put us in just the regular area instead of, I mean, it's a punishment for
I
being a local
know,
officer.
I know it.
If you're from Oklahoma City,
Right.
you're over there, you know, next to James Patterson. But
Yes.
if you're a
Thank
local,
you.
you're thrown
Right.
in the corner.
But if Stephen King were from Lubbock, they wouldn't put him in there.
I know it.
So one of us needs to become Stephen King.
Yeah, I know.
That's so.
One of us has got big.
So I'm trying. That's all I
I
can
think
say.
that brings up a good opportunity to talk about though how we need more active participation in the group for things like that, for somebody to be an ambassador to bookstores and to libraries and to elevate our profile. Because like 3 people are kind of keeping this group, 3 to 5 people, 3 who work a lot and then a couple more who try. But we do need more. We do need more.
Is it over? Oh, okay. It's
to
over.
fill in these little gaps.
I didn't know what it been said.
I wanted to ask
organization and
that
he's on the
Cohen is
on
here
library
and he has
the
some
lid.
books. And if you're interested in looking on his books, he's got them for sale.